Warning, this content may be upsetting or disturbing to some audiences. What is the scariest thing that has ever happened to you? When hubby deployed to Iraq in our guts, we all knew he wouldn't come home. Everyone did. Me, my husband, the kids, other family members, friends, etc. No explanation, just something all of us felt the moment he received orders. Wasn't a matter of if but when it would happen. So spent 15-16 months dreading that moment. Hubby used to call and or get online and talk to me every day, even if it meant waiting in line for 2 to 3 hours. When something bad happened, the battalion would go on blackout, which meant no phone calls, internet was blocked, etc. until family members could be notified. So hubby goes out on a mission to an area that had recently had a lot of IED attacks. I don't hear from him. So of course I got worried. 24 hours go by, but yet I haven't received the call from battalion to start letting certain families know their soldier is okay. I contacted a couple of other family support members to see if they had gotten call from the battalion yet, but only got voicemails, which really scared me. If one of those was the victim, we would be informed to not call them, so it was not difficult to figure out. And despite being involved in this process, another support member was required to call me to let me know my family member was okay. Then I hear a car pull up and stop in our alley right outside my bedroom window. I look out and it's a government vehicle. I can tell it was government plates, with at least 2 people in car, one of which appeared to be in uniform. My heart sank. We are a small town. There is only one reason such a vehicle would be parked outside my home. I lost it. My 2 oldest kids, 16 and 15, were home and I debated calling them down to prepare them. The vehicle didn't move, the people didn't get out. And then they drove away. I still, 9 years later, have no idea who they were, why they were stopped there, nothing. I have never been as scared as I was in those moments. My husband did make it home from the deployment, although I admit, watching his plane land, I had a few moments of fear that it would crash. 14 missed calls from my mother. Shivers run down my spine even as I type that. Someone broke into my grandma's house when I was home alone at 11 years old. My mom and grandma worked nights. I was watching TV in my room when I heard what sounded like the dishes settling in the kitchen. I walked into the kitchen and saw a giant arm reaching in from the kitchen door's window. Running with the bulls in Pamplona, Spain. Fuck that shit. 99% sure I watched a guy die as he lay in the middle of the street with blood running from the back of his head into a sewer drain. I was pushed off a train platform. It was probably completely unintentional. I was carrying a huge duffel bag and was exhausted. I have no idea what happened, no memory at all. But apparently someone bumped me and I wound up on tracks. I just missed the 3rd rail. Stopped train traffic during commuter hours. Can't remember how many stitches, but it was a good one. As a teenager I decided that since I'd never been on a roller coaster, I might as well go on the tallest one in the country as my first. It was alright until the 200 feet drop. I was exploring the woods in a large park near my place. By large I mean 10 kilometers wide, 20 kilometers tall. I had a GPS, was geocaching, and ended up about 3 kilometers away from my car through dense trail/woods. I was by an old homestead that, in the day, is quite beautiful. As it was nearing twilight, it was downright creepy. So I went the road instead, probably 6K. After just starting down the road I saw a good trail open up on the right, and knew it was the right direction. I took it. It led to an open area with little scrub bushes. Things were getting close to dark now. Suddenly, I came to a 40-foot tall crude wooden cross with some fabric hanging over the crosspiece. Around it in a semicircle were fire pits and other crude wooden structures. Felt very strange. Started getting spooked. Looked at my GPS and started running in the direction of my car. Still about 2K to go. GPS battery died on me. Just kept running. Now it was dark. Almost fell down a sand pit. Got my legs scratched up by the bushes since I could barely see them. Got to the end of the open area and followed the tree line. A path/small road opened up and I took it, since I knew it was roughly in the right direction. Screamed, stopped. We stared at each other until it decided to leave. Kept going, found my car eventually. Got home, looked at the area on Google Maps. The whole park is crystal clear, except for that area. Fuzzed out, clearly intentionally. Buried alive for 10+ hours following a 7.5 earthquake. It's tough to choose. I've had a few scary things. But I'm going to say when my son disappeared in a store when he was 4. He has autism and at that point was in a wandering stage and, well, if you've seen the news at all, kids with autism and wandering off often end quite badly. Employees, even other shoppers stopped what they were doing to help. He wasn't anywhere. They told me they'd cleared the store. I was in hysterics, sure that I'd never see my son again. Terrified he'd been kidnapped, the worst possible thoughts going through my head. The police came, were filing a report, were telling me to calm down, telling me I'd have to go home and wait. There was no way I was going anywhere without my baby. The looks on the police officers' faces said that they thought something bad had happened too. It was awful. Then a customer called to me and I ran. She found him. He went behind a vending machine in the vestibule of the store, and hid behind it, wouldn't come out to being called. Even when the police went in there and had been calling him, he hadn't moved. I will never forget the terror and then the relief that filled my whole body as I scooped him up and held him. I never wanted to let him go ever again. It still scares me to think about the other possibilities, and every time I hear a child with autism goes missing my stomach sinks. I still worry though, for him and all the other kids with autism. Got suddenly dazed by an insane, pretend cop. Most helpless I felt. Text wall warning. Well, I was probably about 20 or 21 years old, you know, about the age to know better. I was supposed to meet a friend at the local bus terminal to go for a pint. My friend never showed up. This left me mildly disgruntled, and apparently quite vulnerable as well. This gentleman says, "Hey, is there a place to get coffee in the terminal?" I said nah, but there's a great cafe down the street. The gentleman says, "Are you looking for any part-time employment?" I explained that I was currently employed but some part-time work could be possible. We drive in town for a few minutes and I then realized that we were leaving the city. I asked this complete stranger, "Hey, where are you taking me?" He says, "Oh, the job is in other town name here, which is where I live, so we'll just go to my house and have a beer and talk about the job there." He says, "Well, I'm a tour guide for European tourists in the area. We do bike and hiking tours, etc. You know? You'd be doing something like that. Seems okay to me." He offers me a beer, which was from a local craft brewery, quite a tasty brew if I can recall. He starts telling me all of the things I would be doing as a tour guide, including sensual massages, insert record scratch or break squeal here. I said, "FCK that, here's what's really going to happen. You're going to give me the money to hop on a bus home, or I'm going to knock you the FCK out and take your car home." He apologized for the miscommunication and gave money for a ride home. Sorry, the ending was kind of anticlimactic, but this event was definitely terrifying once it started to pan out on what was happening. I am a police officer and was on the highway helping a motorist. It was raining and dark. When I was finishing up, robbery call came out. I was still helping this guy and a bunch of officers were closer, so I quickly finished and then headed that way. I was not running emergency traffic since a bunch were already there, but I was going about 10 over on the wet highway. Car beside me made a quick movement into my lane and I had to cut hard left to avoid him. I did about a 540 and was heading straight at the wall separating eastbound and westbound traffic. Luckily, I stopped the spin before hitting the wall. No other cars were around. Before I could get out to see if the other driver was okay, he took off. My car had locked up and I could not get it moving in time to catch up to him for almost slamming me into the wall. It was pretty terrifying. For whatever reason, that has always stuck with me as the most dangerous moment of my career in law enforcement thus far. That is even when having confronted armed subjects. Junior year of high school, 16-year-old me taking the subway home. Notice this large man with a shaved head and creepy pedo smile sitting across from me, just staring at me like I was a juicy steak. Feeling uncomfortable, I get up and move to the next car. I sit down. I decided to move to another car, not the next one, but two away, figuring he'd leave well enough alone. Not so. He followed. I noticed that we are nearing my stop, so I get up and make the move to the next car, and proceed to get out of the car onto the platform as the doors close. I nearly SHD myself. Train pulled out, I dashed out the station and grabbed the first bus out. I felt I was just minutes away from being an after-school special. I was sitting in my car parked outside the local cigar shop, which is bordering on the bad part of town, while my mom was buying some cigars for family and friends to celebrate the 4th of July. It must have been doing at least 30 miles per hour when it hit the van. It is worth mentioning that these guys are on the small side. Soon after, the guy finally gets out of his car and he is massive, 300 plus pounds, at least 6'3 inches, and both parties get right in each other's faces until the big guy pushes one of the little guys, which causes the two to start throwing punches. So they tussle for a bit until the big guy hits one of the little guys hard, absolutely wrecking him, which causes him to fall back while his friend goes Karate Kid on the big guy. At this point I am in the car less than 30 feet away and I peel out like a bat out of hell and park at a safe distance, frantically calling my mom to make sure she is okay, but I cannot reach her. Finally, on the third try, she answers and says she is okay and on lockdown in the cigar shop. The two guys keep advancing, gun in hand, on the big guy, taking their little fiasco onto the road, and they are doing this whole line encircling its prey thing in the middle of an 8-lane highway, completely blocking traffic. All of a sudden, about 8 police cars surround them in the street. Probably the most badass thing I've ever seen. I remember the exact moment when you could see them SHD themselves as they were totally iffed. Still cannot believe I witnessed SHD like that up close and personal. In terms of sheer prolonged terror, I was rolling to a stop in a highway traffic jam when I got rear-ended. Pickup 2 vehicles behind me was driving distracted, didn't even touch his brakes. Hit the sedan behind me and pushed him into me. I wound up in the median, had fallen over a culvert and rightfully should have flipped but somehow didn't. It was hard enough that it snapped my driver's seat back off and popped all the interior panels out, bent the car in half. I walked away but the passengers of the sedan were critical. In terms of actual danger, I was working on the shoulder of a highway when a lumber truck going past lost its load, and it had been raining. I was very fortunate and was facing the truck when it happened, so I saw some of it coming and vaulted onto the pier. At a minimum, hospital, easily could have just killed me. Sadly, I have lots of work horror stories, but that's one of my favorites. One time I was jogging at like 7 a.m., stopped at a light. My headphones were in so I couldn't hear anything. Then this kid on a bike comes up behind me and I freaked the FCK out. The kid just looks at me and keeps on riding. Imagine a 26-year-old man just letting out a really loud yelp because of some 12-year-old kid on a bike. Realizing I was stood in my kitchen with a whole row of pills ready to go. Deciding that I should do the stuff I'm afraid of, and if that doesn't work out the pills will still be there. They're still there but I don't want them as badly anymore. 2 equal times. When my eldest daughter was 3, she somehow got hold of a penny and swallowed it. She choked, I found her turning blue, and began frantically hitting her back to get it out. It felt like about 20 minutes, but must have been much shorter, but she eventually threw up and the penny came out. Second time was my youngest daughter having an asthma attack. 1 minute, we were at home, she was a little wheezy, but I instinctively knew something was up, went to hospital and not long after was passing out from lack of oxygen. My 4-year-old son had a habit of announcing when he had to use the bathroom. He would say, "I gotta go potty." One time he makes his business known and heads off toward the bathroom. He returns seconds later and says there's already someone in the bathroom. Now I do know for a fact that it's just the two of us home, so the hair stands up on my neck. I ask him, "What do you mean?" He repeats, "There's already someone in the bathroom." Now I'm thinking, is it someone I see dead people or someone in a hockey goalie mask? So I grab the biggest knife from my knife block and tell him to stay here. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.